So we've covered the monster trio and the god himself, but let's talk about everyone's first One Piece best girl, Nami. While Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and even Usopp tend to have these intense and powerful scenes that define them, Nami is a bit of a different story. She is rarely in fights, so obviously it's a little bit harder for her to do things that are showy or impressive to many fans. However, Nami definitely has a good amount of awesome moments, which are typically in the support or backline roles. A lot of the time that we see Nami at her best, she is stealing or working in tandem with Luffy or the other Straw Hats. So let's start off with some examples of Nami being a badass thief. When she was first introduced, she was a thief who stole from pirates so that she could pay off a debt to Arlong and buy back her hometown. And that of course led to an obsession with money. Even after her town is freed, she still goes crazy for every berry she can find. This was a pretty core tenet of her character for a long time, and while it has died down a little after the time skip, it is definitely still present. One of my favorite scenes involving Nami and money involves her and Zoro. Zoro needs to buy some new swords when the crew is in Logtown, so he makes the mistake of borrowing 50,000 berries from Nami. By the time they get to Alabasta, which is like canonically just a few weeks or so, Nami reminds him of his debt and lets him know that he now owes about 400,000 berries because of the interest. Listen, I know it is probably insensitive to call Nami this because of the whole Arlong thing, but this chick is a loan shark. She's lucky that she's a pirate because those rates have to be illegal. Ironically enough, this would mean that Nami is charging Zoro way more money than Arlong was charging the people of Kokoyashi Village. But who's counting? Oh wait, me and my boy Axel are actually. We have a very fun theory video about Zoro on his channel that covers this that I will be sure to link down below. Anyway, while we are on the topic of Nami and Kokoyashi Village, we have to talk about something. When people think of this arc and badass moments, we usually get the walk to Arlong Park, or Luffy giving his hat to Nami. Do you know what almost no one talks about? How fucking badass Nami was. You have a little girl who was scared for her life, decided that she would sacrifice her childhood to work for literal monsters, live in a pseudo-exile as she stole gold from pirates. And like a few obvious points here, yeah, the village knew what she was really doing, but they still acted as though they knew nothing and basically forced this girl to feel alone through the whole thing. Although, it did come from a good place, as they didn't want her to feel guilty if she had to give up. Also, it wasn't like she was just stealing from random villagers. This girl was going up against bloodthirsty pirates from such a young age. However, before we begin, today's video is sponsored by Iron Saga, the mecha waifu mobile game. With over 500 hand-drawn and beautifully animated mechs and pilots, this mecha game has a ton of collaborations with anime like Code Geass, Evangelion, Gurren Lagann, and more. There's a story mode to beat, arena battles and competitive PvP to be had, combat simulations, races, card games, and so much more. All for a small price of absolutely free. A download link will be available in the description below. Iron Saga is also currently collaborating with the anime series Dangayo and will be including mechs from the series. Here's a little sneak peek. The Dangayo mech, which arrives from the outer universe, possesses different structures than those of the existing mechs in Iron Saga. Players will be able to permanently unlock the Dangayo mech for their collection after earning 30 shards and exchanging them all at the event store. This game is available on both iOS and Android. Not only would you be getting a fun, completely free game, but you would also be supporting me directly in the process, and I really do appreciate it. So download the game and redeem the code, both located down below. Thank you for your time, and without any more delay, let's hop back into the video. It wasn't like she was just stealing from random villagers. This girl was going up against bloodthirsty pirates from such a young age. Even Buggy, who in the grand scheme of things is pretty weak, was a major deal. He had a 5 million berry bounty in a sea where the highest was like 30 million, about 17% on the sea's highest. Proportionally, if we look at Kaido's bounty in the current arc, it would be like she was trying to steal from a pirate around 750 million, so someone between Cracker and Peril Sparrow, which is fucking bonkers. So this little girl spends her whole childhood stealing from murderers and thieves while being kept prisoner by monsters and exiled by all the people in her home. Oh yeah, and all of this was after watching her adopted mom get shot. I don't even care. Nami is a goddamn superhero for this, and she gets like no credit for it other than when people talk about, quote, that scene when Nami cried and Luffy gave her his hat. Like, imagine if you went through all this and the only thing people remembered about it was that you eventually broke down crying and asked for help. Easily one of the most underrated moments in the series in my opinion. But I can't spend the whole video on Nami's backstory. Let's take a look at the last completed arc, Whole Cake Island. The crew is running from Big Mom, who is on a rampage, and Nami lands the first impactful strike on Big Mom, a Yonko, by calling down a crazy lightning bolt. Which is great and impressive on its own, but the moment that really made me the most hyped was when we got to see Nami breaking into her old thief days. For those of you who don't know, Big Mom has 3 weapons. A sword hat named Napoleon, a ball of fire named Prometheus, and a thundercloud named Zeus. Each of these have a large percentage of her soul inside of them, so Big Mom is going nuts and sending Zeus after the crew, and Nami just starts feeding him thunderclouds and bribing him to follow her. This eventually works, and Nami straight up steals a living embodiment of Big Mom's soul. People talk about her doing this pretty often, but rarely does anyone mention that it's a callback to her being a thief at the end of the day, and how crazy it is that she managed to manipulate Zeus in the same way she originally tricked Luffy and the crew, along with every other group of pirates she stole from, that she was on their side and is able to offer value to them. Speaking of value, let's focus on how badass of a navigator she is. People make the joke all the time that if the Straw Hats never found Nami, they would have gotten lost and died a long time ago. Like Zoro followed clouds when he had to navigate, for God's sake. But Nami is out here predicting changes in weather by feeling out the pressure in the air, the wind, and the temperature. When the crew reaches the Grand Line, they get hit with a ton of crazy weather, and Nami navigates it all like a pro. Even when there was that massive hurricane, Nami could tell it was coming before it even happened, and got the Straw Hats through it amazingly. So this brings us to 2 things. 1, how underappreciated she is as the crew's babysitter and lifeguard, and 2, how talented she is as a navigator. We can only assume that she has to deal with these insane weather conditions between every island. But obviously Oda had to stop showing them to us, because if we had to watch the Straw Hats go through another hurricane or storm or whatever, when they leave each island, it would get old pretty fast. Either way, she's an absolute godsend to the crew. Speaking of her saving Luffy's life, remember the fight with Cracker? Luffy is going all out, he's rocking Gear 4th and can barely manage to crack through the edible soldiers. But with Nami's help, he manages to get the W. Nami used her climb attack to make it start raining. This obviously made the soldiers soft enough for Luffy to be able to crack them, do damage, and start eating them apparently, and eventually leads to him winning the fight. As I said, Nami is much more of a support character. While Luffy and Zoro might charge in headfirst to a fight, it is more common for Nami to think things through and come up with a strategy. Also, while we are on the subject of climb attacks, like what the hell? It can produce warm and cool bubbles that can affect the weather. The fact that she can understand it so effortlessly is something that is incredible on its own, let alone that she can change the freaking weather with it. And while she might not be the strongest in a one-on-one fight, she definitely puts this thing to work and has some of the more interesting fights in the series. Which, by more interesting, I mean her fights don't usually come down to things like just hitting the person real good. While she might not have the most fights in the series, she has 2 really impressive ones. Firstly, we have her battle with Khalifa. Khalifa just finished mopping the floor with Sanji because he is being a total simp. He refuses to fight her because she's a woman and quickly gets turned into a slippery soap man. Nami gets in there just in time to save him, and we get one of her first big fights in the show. Now, like I said, Nami isn't exactly about to go into a fight and beat someone into submission. Instead, we see her and Khalifa having a battle of strategy, with Khalifa using her new devil fruit and Nami using her climb attack. Nami creates several mirages of herself, which allows her to stay safe for a while battling the assassin. I really like this version of Nami, where we get to see her as this mix of a black mage and an illusionist, creating rain, wind, and lightning to fight while producing defensive mirages as well. We have a lot of things on the Straw Hat crew: an engineer, swordsman, fighter, and even a reindeer, but magic is one thing we rarely see in One Piece. So it would have been cool to see Nami lean into this a bit more, And yeah, I know it's science, but also, come on, it's basically magic. Although recently in Wano, we did see her don the Kunoichi wardrobe, so I do hope this version of her makes a return and she is given some screen time and maybe even a good 1v1 again. Anyway, the fight goes on and Khalifa has a definitive upper hand. As Nami uses Black Cloud Tempo to produce a storm cloud, Khalifa creates a soapy tidal wave to eliminate the clones. Then Nami raises her climb attack and uses it as a lightning rod to direct the electricity in the cloud through Khalifa in the first and only use of the Thunder Lance Tempo, for what I think is an amazing and very underrated badass moment. And then as the story progresses, she is basically carrying a lightning cannon on her that can take out massive groups of enemies with ease. And finally, in Nami's biggest underrated moment, we have her battle against Miss Doublefinger. This is Nami's first real time using the climb attack. She barely escapes Da's bones, only for the spike human Miss Doublefinger to cut her off. She breaks out the climb attack and realizes Usopp basically loaded it with a bunch of party gags, like making flowers appear. However, as the fight goes on, she slowly masters the weapon. Keep in mind, Doublefinger is no joke. She can stab through solid stone, walk on walls, and create a Sonic the Hedgehog-like ball of spikes that devastates anything she is fighting. For Nami, this fight basically comes down to escaping and running long enough to learn how to use her new weapon. We see her create her first illusion as Doublefinger straight up murders her clone. Then Nami gets the idea to use warm and cool moist bubbles together to create a pressure difference and produce a storm cloud. As Doublefinger walks up and tries to take her out, a massive bolt of lightning hits her. She swings for Nami, but it's just another mirage, and finally Doublefinger launches herself at Nami, piercing through her foot. As Nami raises the climb attack and two springs launch out, she calls Tornado Tempo as they spin around Doublefinger and send her flying through a nearby building, finally giving Nami the W and her first real win of the series. And there you have it, all of my favorite underrated moments. That being said, Nami really doesn't get too much love in the series. Sure, people love her, but there aren't exactly any moments like nothing happened, or Luffy punching a dragon, which can apply to two different badass scenarios if you know what I mean. Instead, Nami tends to lure enemies into traps and strike them down with lightning and steal from them. She's a master manipulator, a thief, a pseudo-mage, on top of being a support fighter and a navigator, all of which combines to make her the most versatile member of the Straw Hat crew. Everyone has their own uses and specific niche skills, but Nami is kind of a jack of all trades and really is the heart of the crew. She is the member that lets everything work smoothly. With no Nami, there are no Straw Hats. And that, my friends, is the end of this video. I do hope you enjoyed. Smash that like button if you did enjoy. Subscribe for more content like this. Let me know down below which Straw Hat you would like to see me do next. My $1 patrons are on screen right now, and that is all you need to donate to gain access to my private Discord server. And now a big thank you to my $2 tier, Siren, RTL Faith, Raphael, Codex. A thank you to my $5 tier, McManga, Nothing But a Fan, King Osloth, Maggie, Joel Godinez, Michelle Moria, Steven, Ophir, Kakashali, KT, Maddie Ice Cream, Miguel, and a thank you to my $10 tier, Johnny Boy Draws, I Cry During Sex, Cricket XP, Jake Kasumi, Shelly, Kaiser Runar, TerraShift 12, Gamer HGH, your boy Shinji, Soulslayer, Jake Min, Greg, Jessica, King Zeldris, Elizabeth, Dusty Blanchette, Ginkgo Taku, and finally a gigantic thank you to my $25 tier, you absolute mad lads. Thank you Steelers, Rusty Lee, Tyson Carino, Mori, Chara, and some guy 9393. I'll see you guys all next time. Shinpaku.